They say success breeds success, but when you come from such humble beginnings, how does one have any concept? Perhaps some are simply born with it, and you don't have to look any further than Mario Andretti as a shining example. The Mario Andretti story is an incredible one. It's one of a boy who fled war-torn Italy with his family to settle in Nazareth, Pennsylvania, and then went on to become one of America's greatest sporting heroes. It's a real-life fairy tale. 2017 marks the 50th anniversary of Mario's Daytona 500 victory. It was a colossal win against the odds. He was a visitor to a then very private stock car club, and he wasn't meant to come away with the club championship. Mario made that Holman Moody Ford dance around Daytona like no one else. It was a victory at the World Center of Racing that was world class. But of course, performing at the highest level while dealing with, at times, challenges beyond belief was Mario's weekly routine. From the early days of collaborating with twin brother Aldo to get that Hudson Hornet humming, to working out just how many USAC dirt track events he could run at any given time, and also counting on the Concorde to get him back across the Atlantic to make the next race the following day. It was all about putting bread on the table. So much so, it was Mario's stock answer when the kids asked him where he was going each week. Once, when son Michael was asked at school what his dad did, his response to the teacher was, "My dad is a baker." And the world's fastest baker went on to win in Formula One. His first was in South Africa for the sport's oldest and most famous team, Scuderia Ferrari. And perhaps fittingly, his final podium was for the same team at the Italian Grand Prix in Monza some 11 years later. But in between was a sea of wins all around the world driving for Colin Chapman's John Player Lotus team. And the reward for all of that was, of course, the 1978 Drivers' World title. But Mario is one of those drivers who can speak to anyone, anywhere about racing because he did so much. Fans from an array of categories identify with him as their guy in their preferred series. IndyCar wouldn't be what it is today without Mario. Road courses, street courses, and ovals of all sizes, it didn't matter. Mario mastered them all. His ability to thrill the fans, while at the same time offer the promoters guidance on what could be done to improve, was immense. Whichever side of the fence you stood, he was invaluable. Mario was part of an era unlikely to be replicated, a time defined by the efforts and astounding feats from the likes of A.J. Foyt, Parnelli Jones, and the Unsers. And even in a crowd like that, Mario Andretti still stood out, stood alone, as something very special. Can you imagine winning the pole position in your first F1 Grand Prix? Oh, and by the way, it was the US GP in Watkins Glen. Or how about having one of your closest friends as your team owner too, but he just happened to be one of Hollywood's best? And then there's the heartwarming angle of footsteps made for family, with son Michael and grandson Marco doing what they were destined to, has made this a racing dynasty. The Andretti racing story is one for the ages, but the racing stats and trophies in the cabinet wouldn't mean so much if Mario wasn't the man he is. He may just be the most humble hero you'll ever meet. And that hasn't occurred by error. This is a man who never forgot from where he came.
Bobby, for those kind words. I think it was when Mario was racing Formula One for Lotus. You were over in Europe racing Formula 2. I was living there racing Formula 4 and Formula 3. And all my English friends used to love to have any chance to tease an American. And they say, "You bloody Yanks, all you can do is turn left." And next year, Mario won the world championship. And it was so great. And we were all so proud of Mario for that. It's really easy to talk in this room with this crowd because all of us here are so passionate about motorsports. My brother Michael once said to me, "Pete, if anybody ever asks you why it is we love to go racing, they'll never understand, so don't bother." In 1948, my father, when he was organizing those early races, the real passion that drove him to do it was a desire to go racing. And so in 1948 on race day, his duties as race organizer ceased, and he became just a racer. I know nothing would please him more than an honor in his name for excellence in motorsports be given to the racer Mario Andretti. Like everyone in this room, my father admired Mario greatly. He told me at the very beginning it was he and my mother alone. But what really made the thing work was the community got behind him. The community embraced the idea of a race at Watkins Glen, and they made it successful. And then later, when he brought the U.S. Grand Prix there, it was the same thing. He said, you can't do these things alone. It takes a family, it takes a community. And the Grand Prix drivers got behind the idea, then the team owners got behind the idea, then the entire motor racing community got behind the idea of a Grand Prix race at Watkins Glen. And it was a big success. So it's a great honor to not only present this award on behalf of my family, but on behalf of the entire motor racing fraternity, which is so well represented in this room. And it's most fitting that all of us should give this award of excellence to the ultimate racer, Mario Andretti.
Mario, if you would come on up. And Peter and Bobby will stand on either side of this beautiful award. The Cameron R. Argetsinger Award for 2017 to Mario Andretti. Now, Mario, we'll have you go grab a microphone and we'll sit down and you and I will visit a little bit. Congratulations, my friend. It is so wonderful to have you here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I just told Bobby, I said, this is the greatest day of my life. I can't believe, everyone's so kind. I cannot even believe what I was hearing. This is the most amazing evening that I've ever spent. When you're fortunate enough to be around for as long as I have, you have the opportunity to make so many friends, and I can go around this room and probably 90% I've seen or have met one time or another, but to hear all of these accolades from guys, competitors and so forth, is something that's just beyond my wildest imagination. I never ever thought that Bobby Unser would be so sweet to me. And like I said, it's just it's unbelievable. I just can't soak it all in yet. It's just one of those things. Just like when you have a big victory, it just takes another day or so for it to soak in. And this is going to be the event for me. Quite honestly, I've been so fortunate, but I've never, ever, ever experienced anything like this, ever. And I'm so grateful to everyone. I could never imagine that this event was going to be like this. It's just awful.
We are so grateful to have you here, and you are one of a kind indeed. I told people tonight when we talked about what you and I would chat about is that we can pick up the history books and we can read the archives. You can go to the library and read about the championships and the wins, but we want to talk a little bit about where you came from. I know family is near and dear to you, and we saw it in some of the videos. And folks, if you don't understand, when Mario was born in 1940 in northern Italy, an area that is currently Croatia, World War II was just starting up, and his family had to endure the pains and agonies of 4.5 years of World War II. And then Yugoslavia comes in and annexes the area, and there's communism, and your family has to become a refugee to a small village in Italy to survive. And then you would immigrate to the U.S. in 1955. So you think about this. This family did not own an automobile until they came to the United States, yet you became a huge and very passionate motorsports fan at the age of 8. How did that happen?
Well, actually, I fell in love with the sport when I was still there in Italy, and in the 50s, the sport was so prominent because of Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo. I was just telling some folks that this afternoon that it captured the imagination of certainly youngsters like myself and my twin brother Aldo. And it just, as I said, I used to go to movies because they would have an intermission to let the smoke out, because they could smoke in movie theaters in those days. And then they would have the newsreels, and the newsreels would just show motor racing all over the world, Formula One and motorbikes and so forth. And Italy was so much part of it. And as a youngster, it just captured my imagination. And my idol at the time was Alberto Ascari, who was a current world champion. There was an air about him that just captured me for sure, just the way he was, the press, would depict him and so forth. And this is something that grew. In fact, I had my dreams. I knew pretty much, or at least I had some sort of a plan as to how we're going to go about it. In Italy, I was going to start driving motorbikes, and I know I had an uncle priest that I think he was going to muster up enough money to help us with the motorbike. But then all of a sudden, the opportunity came to come to America, and I figured, oh, the dream is gone now. What the heck, And then a week later, after we arrived here, we find out there was a track in Nazareth, right, where I'm still living, and so Aldo and I just booked down there, and we found out stock cars, and then 4 years later we started building our own, and 1959, the saga began, and 19 years of age at the time. Today, 19 years it's already quite accomplished. You're already an accomplished racer, but in those days it was very young because legally you could not race until you were 21. Back in those days, and so we sort of faked it a little bit, and Aldo and I just started. We built our own car. We started driving stock cars, but the objective was always, to be in the single-seater ultimately, and into midgets and so on and so forth, and then Formula One was always something, in the back of my mind, because I remember I had a fabulous weekend. I had three wins in one day, in Labor Day in 1963, and I'm sitting in the cockpit just getting ready to push off in a midget, and that's just when Dan Gurney got his ride with Ferrari, and I was thinking of Dan Gurney in the Ferrari while I was sitting in the midget in Hatfield, Pennsylvania, so I had all of this going through my brain. But what really worked for me just is, you can imagine, definitely the passion for it. I just wanted to drive and drive and drive. And trying to get to the level of Formula One, I just tried to create or get a reputation where I would earn my way to that point. And along the way, I found how important, how fabulous IndyCar racing is, because of the fact that even back in the 60s and 70s, the championship was about road racing, oval, short oval, super speedway, and even dirt racing was part of the championship. So as far as the driver, being able to be an all-around, that was, the most, you had to be the most versatile, and, of all to be able to accomplish that. So again, in today still, at the top level of our disciplines, IndyCar racing is the part that offers probably the best, the biggest challenge to a driver, you know, to master all of the, like I said, ovals, you know, and high-speed oval and road racing, and that's why I just love IndyCar racing so much, and so, you know, fortunate to be part of it.
We talk about drivers who have so much talent, but they come to you and they ask for advice, and they say, and I hear you at times talking to them, you never turn them away, you're always very gracious, and you just got to get a break. You just got to catch a break. What was your break? I know you had talent, and people said you did. And we talk about how Rufus Gray and Chris Economaki wanted to try to get you seen by Clint Bronner. Talk about how that came to be.
Well, I think Roger Penske talked about one that was a defining factor, because obviously coming through the ranks, your objective is to be at the top level, and that was IndyCar racing. And the fortunate part about that, in those days when you were running midgets and sprint cars, we were running against all the top drivers that were driving, you know, in the IndyCar series, because they would, you know, we'd be driving Saturday night somewhere in a sprint car and driving an IndyCar race the next day. And so you were mixing up with the top level. And again, but unfortunately in those days you had to wait for somebody to get hurt. Almost, and that's how it happened to me. But Roger was a very prominent driver at the time, and he was in line to get the test with the Clint Bronner car where Chuck Halls got hurt, and I had some people pushing, you know, in my direction as well. But you know, Roger had the first dibs. And I think he got a big bellyache, I think, and he couldn't make it. So they called me, and that was the beginning. And the best part about it, I said this a million times, that the Dean Van Line team was one of the top 3 teams that were doing a lot of testing and development for Firestone. And I'm in Trenton, New Jersey, where Roger Ward was there, and Pernelli Jones, and then they had me as a youngster testing with the Roadster that's up front. And so I was running against the rear engine cars that they were running, and I think the Firestone engineers, I think what they seemed to like the feedback that they got from me, because I was fresh. Was, you know, I was not set in my ways, and you know, with some of the more established drivers, sometimes they tell the engineers what they want to hear, you know, and so somehow that, you know, got me into the circle, you know, where all of a sudden, from one test to another, I became part of all of the development, you know, with Firestone, and I credit Firestone. They always did, you know, a great deal for contributing so much, you know, to developing, you know, my driving and you know, and helping in my career, because we were putting thousands of miles of testing along the way, which was, you know, just amazing how good that was for a driver or someone. And I wanted to be at all tests. I didn't want any vacations, you know. I wanted to participate in all of them because I knew how valuable it was. And so again, it's just one of those things that. And you know, when I got the break, somehow things just happened, and one thing led to another, and then from there, you just hard work.
Absolutely, hard work and a lot of success. You're 6 years with Clint Bronner. You won a championship. You're at the age of 25. The first year, you won another championship. At the second year, at the age of 26, and of course, Indianapolis 500 in 1969. You know, Mario, it's truly appropriate that we're here just down the street from Watkins Glen, because this racetrack played a key role in your Formula One career, right? Your very first start here.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, I remember in '65, I was trying to befriend Colin Chapman and Jim Clark. You know, Jim Clark won the race. I finished third. So after the banquet, before they left, I went to Colin. I said, you know, Colin, someday I would like to do Formula One. And Colin said, Mario, he says, when you think you're ready, call me. So, and that's why I said, man, I got to do some road racing. And I got, USAC, I was lobbying like crazy to try to get more road races, which they were beginning to. But then the Ford program, the Le Mans program came on, and they needed to do a lot of testing and development. And I said, I'm in for all the tests. And there I learned so much by just befriending and being very close to Bruce McLaren, and so which was a very technical driver. And so one thing led to another. By 1968, I called Colin and I said, Colin, I'd like to do the last 2 races of the season, and which would be the Italian Grand Prix and Watkins Glen. And he said, okay. He said, we'll do a test in Italy. And and we did. Actually, I did 3 days and I broke the record. And Chris Heyman was there before with the Ferrari, and went quicker than he did. And so I felt really good. I felt really good in the Formula One car. And so the idea, there was a problem, however. I was up for the championship, for a national championship, and I could not miss any races. So, of course, the race was on a Sunday there, but on a Saturday, I had to race in Indianapolis at the Hoosier 100 on the dirt. And but there was a 24-hour rule on international events. And I got the Italian contingent, Bacigalupi, who was the promoter at Monza, Count Gurney, who was the FIA part, the two agreed they're going to waive that 24-hour rule. And so I knew that I only had the morning of Friday to qualify. And in those days, every single practice in a Formula One race, or even a sports car race, counted for qualifying. The time counted for qualifying. So we had to get it all in the morning. So I got Bobby Unser arrived with in the BRM with Lewis Stanley, and so we could do some slipstreaming. It was very important to do slipstreaming. Anyway, we got a time, and actually I was quickest at the time, and we boarded a plane. We got some military helicopter there. We came to the States. I finished second to Foyt at the Hoosier 100. We flew back to Monza, and there's a story about that too. He was talking about the guy ready to shoot him, but because we didn't have our credentials. It was anyway. And my car was 7th on the grid, but there was a protest. Ferrari protested the rule, and Colin was the only one there, during the protest proceedings, and he couldn't speak Italian, so everybody talking Italian, so they did not allow us to start. And so it turned out to be that my debut was going to be at the Glen here. This was 1968, and I had never seen the place. I had never been here before, and but it worked out because I felt so good in the car, and I had the 3rd entry, and we put the thing on pole, and that was, Jackie Stewart was 2nd, which is always a premium when you have somebody like that, to be behind you. And so that was amazing day for me. And Graham Hill was the team leader, at Lotus. So, but anyway, it was, an auspicious beginning here, and it was the beginning of my experience here at the Glen, which when I look back, and actually that's just because we're here, but there's no other venue where I raced so many different disciplines here. I raced Formula One, I raced Indy cars here, Can-Am, sports prototypes, and Indy cars, So again, just pretty much everything that they raced here, I was able to be part of one of them, and luckily I won a few of those too. So again, and I'm leading every race here, and I'm on pole. I've been on pole the last couple of races here with the 2-seater, the Honda 2-seater. So, because as a matter of fact, the last 7 years, I've led every IndyCar race, and I've been on pole with every IndyCar race. can I say? On the power.
All of our ABC colleagues say we should put Scott Goodyear in the back part so he can finish second again. But let me, you know, it would be unfair to ask you, with all your success, to pick one victory. But if you could, give us maybe your top 3 career wins in whatever series, in terms of, you don't even have to rank them, the 3 wins you think in your career that maybe are 1, 2, 3.
Well, I mean, the most important one personally is the Italian Grand Prix, because that's when I saw my very first race when I was 14 years of age, and that's when my dream really began. And, you know, to win there in 77 and then clinch the World Championship in 78. But in 77, I had won a sports car race there in 73, you know, for Alfa Romeo, but to win the Grand Prix, that was, to me, the ultimate, because of, again, you know, that's where it all began. The classics are always the classics. I mean, people say, oh, hey, Mario Andretti 69. Like, you know, that's the only race that I raced my entire life, you know what I mean? And somehow they just, those are the ones that people remember. Daytona, that 67. You know, it was one of those days where my car was really working, everything was working right, and you know, I didn't just luck into that. I mean, I was, you know, I led 118 of 200 laps, you know what I mean? So the thing about it is those are the races, you know, you've got to remember that because of the classics that they are, and they're the ones that people remind you so often about. I mean, again, there's some dirt races and so forth that just gave me tremendous satisfaction. You know, to me, there was no better dirt racer than A.J. Foyt. It was just amazing. And I mean, there were others, you know, Don Branson and so forth, you know, but Foyt overall, I mean, he was a master. And to win over Foyt, to me, was the ultimate, too. And so I've done that a few times, and especially the premier race was the Hoosier 100, which really pissed them off, actually. But, you know, those are the, you know, like I said, you go back and you reminisce on those. I said, oh my gosh, you know, that's the ultimate satisfaction.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, who would you consider your biggest and maybe most bitter rival? Would AJ be among those?
Well, well, for sure he was one, because he was very boisterous, you know, like he would really express himself, you know, and to my defense, I knew I could run faster than he could, you know, because so I was safe, you know, I was fine. But AJ and I have really become really good friends. He has mellowed considerably. As a matter of fact, I'm lobbying like crazy for him to ride with me in a 2-seater. We might just get that done maybe next year at Indy. You know, he said, because I was talking to him down in Dallas, and I said, you know, Mario, I said, AJ, you're the master, I'm the pupil, and then we'll see. You know, you'll see just how much you taught me. You know, so we'll get it done. So you know, hopefully we'll get that done.
What if he said, you drive a lap and I drive a lap?
Well, if you can fit in the cockpit, I'll go.
Okay, well, we'll line this up, but I got a couple more. If the man above said to you, Mario, okay, we're going to turn back the clock and let you relive one day, one event, one race in your life again, what would you choose?
Oh, gosh. I mean, it's, again, it's so hard to just pick one per se, because for many reasons I could say, okay, this race or that race. You know, it would have to be a race, obviously. That's what I live for. And, you know, there are other days, and, you know, I would say the day that I got married, I would like to do it again. But, you know, my wife knows that I'm bullying her a little bit. I mean, even though, you know, it was a great day, but, you know, we're so damn selfish, you know what I mean? And, but I look back as to what you really put into it, put into your work and everything, and the satisfaction that you derive. I mean, there was one race that, I don't know, again, sometimes they're obscure, but the Michigan 500, when I won, I was a lap down because, we lost a cylinder, we lost the plug and so forth. And then I made up a lap, and there was no lucky dog either those days, so you just had to make it up. And then I won it, but I don't know, it's one of those races probably nobody notices, but there was another day that we came back from Pocono a couple of weeks ago. In 1986, I had Michael, of course, was driving the Indy cars, and my younger son Jeff was driving what's now the Indy Lights, and so they had the supporting event, and so Jeff was on pole and won the supporting race, and Michael was on pole for the 500, and I won the 500. So between the three of us, we cleaned house that weekend, and but again, it's just something that was just us. We're the only ones that actually really know that, and appreciate it, and it was not played out, but from a satisfaction standpoint and from a family standpoint, is to be able to achieve that, was just tremendous. There was another one. How many did you want? Two? I mean, there was in 1993. There was in Milwaukee. There was a podium with Michael, my nephew John, and myself. In 1992, 91, and 92, there were 4 members of our family to race at Indianapolis, which was the first time ever and the first time since. So again, I feel so blessed. I mean, I got so much